when I was, my parents, I'm a second generation Black nationalist and Pan-Africanist, and I'm in my 70s. My parents, my father moved our family to live in Mali during the time that Modibo Keïta was president of the nation. I lived in Mali, was immersed in French African school system the whole time that we lived in Mali for roughly 3 years. And I came back to I left the United States in 1964, came back in 1967. So I had an opportunity to not only talk about Africa theoretically as an adult, but I also had the opportunity to live with African children and go to school with African children on a regular basis in the French African school system in Sikasso and Bamako of Mali. I say all that to say that it's very important that we understand that immersion is a very important process for being an African person. We can be an African person from the theoretical, and then there's the reality of being an African from living the experience. Living the experience that shapes you in a different way from living from the theory. Because when you wake up every day and you see the African sun and you eat African food and you play with African children, it gives you a different personal experience. I stand on the shoulders of Amos Muhammad and Dr. Raqib Muhammad, who returned from Africa and joined the Nation of Islam. Amos Muhammad became a minister under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from 1967 to 1974. So I had that experience. I also stand on the shoulders of a mother who created one of the educational models that was instituted by the Nation of Islam back in the 60s. But I also stand on my own shoulders of activism, which includes Pan-Africanism and my participation in the 1992 Pan-African Black think tank that took place in Baghdad, Nigeria, back in 1992, where 30 of us speaking from 30 of us. You gave me off yet? 30 of us got together from all over the Black world, and we sat down and created the Black Agenda beyond the year 2000. That Black Agenda is still in my book as a matter of process, because we sat down, worked with each other on 12-hour days, sometimes with kerosene lamps, to pound out something that all of us, regardless of what language we spoke, could agree to. And some of us were speaking Spanish and needed to have a translator. Some folks were speaking Portuguese and needed to have a translator. And we, of course, speaking English, had needed to have translators, along with the brothers and sisters who we could help out who spoke French. I say this to say that our movement is an international global movement that must include all African people who speak all the different European languages. And then we must also include in that experience other Black people in the world, those in Australia, the Dalit people in India, and all those Black people who are repressed and suppressed throughout the entire global world, who don't even know of the Pan-African process, but need to learn it and need to have access to it by other Black people who are involved. I am
30 seconds, Baba. 30 seconds, Baba.
I am happy to be a shield for the Sahel Alliance and its leaders, knowing what they are willing to sacrifice. The question is, are we? We also have to be the sword, because you do not win on defense, you win on offense. And if we are not the sword, we cannot win. I suggest to all the leaders of the Sahel movement to read The Destruction of Black Civilization by ancestor Chancellor Wisdom as a Bible for understanding how to move forward in a world of white supremacy. We've called it everything at this point but white supremacy, but we are in a struggle with white supremacy for the very soul of us as African people. And that is the enemy. And until you can define the enemy, there's no way you can defeat the enemy, and you cannot defeat the enemy on defense. So with that being said, the little time that I've had, Hopefully, if I've added something to the conversation, I don't know, who knows, but as I want to give once more, I wanted to thank the leaders of the Sahel for the courage and the strength to stand up when nobody else has stood up, knowing that they have a target on their backs 24/7 hours a day. And you have to know what that, in order to know what that is, you have to be a revolutionary.